Welcome back to FilmFloggers. We review films and flog dead horses, so you don't have to. Is this week's film choice a complete waste of your viewing time? Much like flogging/beating dead horses, get it? Please head over to www.filmfloggers.com to check out all of our previous floggings. And while you're there, maybe hang out for a while, look around and vote for our next film. Click on vote, or visit www.filmfloggers.com/vote. Are you an idiot? If so, please check out our Idiot's Guide to Reviewing Us, where even a big dummy like you can leave us a red-hot review. Here at FilmFloggers, we pride ourselves on offering 1-star content with 5-star effort. Once on the website, please click on Idiot's Guide, or visit us at www.filmfloggers.com/review-us. That should have been Idiot's Guide. My fault, I didn't change the URL. Annoying. Once again, filmfloggers.com/review-us. Believe it or not, we now have a Patreon. I know what you're thinking. You have the audacity to ask us to pay to receive more of this. Pause for dramatic effect. Yes. We have a Patreon exclusive show called Nitpickers. I think you'll like it. Please visit www.filmfloggers.com/support-us. Again, that hyphen is annoying, should have removed it. Or head straight to our Patreon page. Patreon.com/filmwafflers. No idea why I did film wafflers. Another mistake. Where you can support us for as little as £1 British or $1.50. And while you're on the website, punch that big purple subscribe button and tell a friend about the vlog. Wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, mistress, your nan, granddad, your kids. They can tell their friends. They can tell their friends at school about the vlog. But in all seriousness, this really helps the podcast grow and enables us to enrich or ruin the lives of the hundreds of millions of earlobes we haven't reached yet. Hi, it's Ben here from FilmFloggers. This is going to be short and snappy, to the point, no waffling, hopefully. So, FilmFloggers have set themselves the absolutely ludicrous challenge of attempting to release 31 horror films during the 31 days of October in celebration of the big day, which is, of course, Halloween. I'm delighted to announce that we've been able to partner up with Head in the Game. Delivered by the Charitable Football Club, Head in the Game is a project that is committed to increasing positive mental health in men between the ages of 25 to 55. Supported by qualified football and talk club coaches, every session will have a focus on men's mental health and well-being and will provide an outlet in a secure and trusted environment. Please, if you get the chance, do head over to headinthegame.co.uk. Click on the About Us page. You can then see the aims and objectives and a little bit more info on what they're all about. If you like what you see and you're feeling generous, please head over to the Donate tab. There you'll find out a bit more information on where your donations will go and how it will help more men get involved with this fantastic project. So if you are in a position to donate, please donate whatever you can. FilmFloggers will be donating £2 per episode. So £62, not a bad figure. But this is also another way that you can help Head in the Game and help FilmFloggers get a few more downloads, because bloody hell, we need them. So if we can reach 1,000 downloads during the month of October, FilmFloggers will top up that amount to £100. So even if you have absolutely no interest in listening to us, just go on one of the episodes or just go on all the episodes, download them. That will then pop up on our website. FilmFloggers gets more downloads and takes us one step closer to podcast world domination. And, of course, the Head in the Game project receives more money, which means that we can get more men involved. Okay, that's enough from me. Enjoy 31 days of horror flog, Flogoween, Flogtober. All the links and all the relevant details will be found in all of the episode notes. Happy Halloween, everyone. Cheers. Well, I'm hoping that if anything goes awry again, I'm going to get that absolutely hideous noise.
This will be a horror podcast in many ways.
I'm recording again. Fucking hell.
I'm recording as well, so...
Right, okay. Take 2. We had a fantastic intro there. We'd made hundreds of good points. And, yeah, well, you can still hear Andrew's points, but you won't be able to hear my response to them because my track blew up.
I wouldn't push hundreds of points. 2 or 3,
yeah, right, okay, yeah.
4
yeah,
a push, but,
yeah. Yes, for some reason I'm having the same issue I had one time with Fiona months ago. And this is on a different bit of software. So, sorry, Hindenburg, who I originally blamed for this. It doesn't seem to be your fault. It seems to either be my fault, my laptop's fault, or the dreaded box's fault. So...
We're leaning towards the box, aren't we?
Yeah.
You hate the box.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
With a passion. With a passion. Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm going to make my fortune, actually. I'm going to do a horror film based around the Rodecaster.
Just stab it.
Yeah, that makes a bit of sense.
That'd be it.
It just tries to kill me. Well, tries to kill my audio.
You could go for a kind of like Tetsuo Iron Man, black and white Japanese thing where it tries to absorb Fiona, and Fiona tries to kill you.
Yeah.
Not saying she would, Ben, but, you know, the Rodecaster might make her do it.
I don't think she needs the Rodecaster, to be honest, Andrew. I think she'd probably do it without the Rodecaster. But yeah, I guess she could blame the Rodecaster. People would maybe believe her, yeah.
I've seen you play Overcooked.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Oh, yeah, we should get back into that at some point. I've got this hideous green screen. Oh, God, I just realised I've actually got the Space Jam background still on. I normally put that on to annoy Tom. I didn't take it off, so apologies for that.
That's quite all right.
Bit jarring. It is colourful, but...
Yeah, I thought you were trying to make it nice so that we can talk about horrific things. It's like, oh, we'll have Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck behind us.
Yeah, I didn't watch the Space Jam sequel, but it looked and I heard pretty damning reports, to be honest.
My kids went to see it. Isla and Eve went to see it, and they thought it was all right. But I think, like most people, they spent a lot of time looking at the background going, look, it's this, it's that, it's him, it's her, and looking for all the, like, Easter eggs behind the film, so...
This is actually a better opener, actually, because on our first go at this, we were talking about the human centipede.
But what are we talking about, Ben?
Right, yes, hello, Andrew. It's Andrew, everyone, from Kids What Are We Watching Tonight? Hello, Andrew.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm good. I'm excited.
Yes, we are talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween. FilmFloggers are doing this 31 films in 31 days. Fun. It's fun. Lots of fun. We're having fun. I'm having lots of fun. I'm not stressed at all.
At all.
Yeah, so we had a chat about a few films, and I was quite keen to rewatch this. So when you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, no, that sounds good. And also, you know, you said that, well, obviously we'll get into it, but you said that in some places you maybe preferred it over the original. So I was quite keen to hear more about that. Yeah, that's why we're doing it, really. And I think Rob Zombie himself is is he an interesting filmmaker? He's different. He's unique in his own way. So I think maybe discussing him could be interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because it's really weird just now because I see a lot of his stuff is coming up with the Munsters. And
I just saw that, actually, yeah.
Yeah, if you've seen any of his film, I mean, obviously you've seen this one, but if you've seen, like, Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, whatever, he just doesn't strike me as the guy to do, like the Munsters, who I equate from my childhood as, like, being like the Addams Family. I mean, for me, because I remember watching them, the black and white stuff on a, like, Thursday on Channel 4 o'clock or something. So I do remember those shows, but I wasn't really into them. And obviously I remember the films with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston. But him doing the Munsters just seems... I think he'll nail the look because he loves them. I just don't know if he can... I don't know if he can do a family movie where people aren't swearing and... Oh, you've disappeared.
Oh, Christ. Oh, Jesus Christ, this is turning into a fucking nightmare. Hello?
Is that still... Yeah. Okay, my recording's now working. Okay, so we made the Munsters point, I think.
Oh, dear God. Dear God. Oh my God. Just can't make it up, can you, all this? It just doesn't make any sense. You just can't make it up. Yeah, so based on Zombie's filmography up to this point, I haven't seen a great deal of the Munsters, but I don't think there's a lot of gore and a lot of swearing and a lot of just unpleasantness going on in the Munsters. So I'm interested to see what Zombie's planning to do with it.
He's going to do the Omar style thing, you know, and be fairly, you know, put out what is maybe a modern version of like a Beverly Hills, like, you know, the 70s characters in the modern day, and he'll maybe nail the look of it, but I mean, I don't know if he'll nail the style, if you understand. I just don't see him not doing a horror film.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's like a passion project. He's a big Munsters fan, so I guess based on that, he's not that fussed about turning it into Munsters start killing people as such and start butchering people. He's just a big fan of the Munsters and just wants to. He's been given the option, so he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. I love it. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, he was. You'd have to be pretty ballsy to kind of say, I want to remake Halloween. So I'm not going to say it's a niche TV show, people have love for Doctor Who and the Munsters and the Addams Family and all these classic TV shows. So there's going to be a very vocal part of the internet that going to be like, I like this or I don't like this. This is nothing like the original. But having done Halloween, I think, he's probably like, technically he's probably like, can't be worse than that.
Yeah, what we touched upon in the first go at this is how I think in many ways the biggest issue was the mystique of Michael Myers and that being eradicated by giving Michael Myers an origin story and seeing him as a child and then exploring that. But that whole mystique had been largely put in the bin by the sequels 4, 5, and certainly 6. The whole thing with him being a druid and part of this weird cult and this fawn shit. And so that had gone anyway. And H2O came after that, which me and Tom have got an episode coming out of that. Just, again, I was looking forward to rewatching that and I just didn't do it for me. And then Resurrection with Busta Rhymes, which is just abysmal.
Isn't Kelly Rowland in that one as well?
Probably, yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
The thing is that the timeline for it is such a mess because you have 1, which everyone knows. 2 happens the night after. 3 has nothing to do with the series at all. In 4, he's been in a coma for 10 years and wakes up. 5, at the end of 4, I think they trap him in a mine, try and blow him up. He falls into a cavern and he's in a coma for another year. And then, like you said, there's this cult, there's the Druids. You've got H20, which was like a sequel to the original. And then I think in Resurrection, Jamie Lee Curtis dies. And it's I can understand why people have love for the slasher horror. But they've kind of tried to turn him into this like Freddy Jason thing, whereby he's this force of evil, and evilness just keeps him going. But as I said previously, at the very start of Halloween, he's just a boy in a costume. He's flesh and blood. And what I love about this is that it gives him that kind of backstory. It's like if you just watch this without watching the Rob Zombie sequel, which I think does a lot of damage as well. If you watch this and you watch the standard version, not the unrated version, it gives you a backstory that I know a lot of people don't like, but it's like, right, if he came from a white trash family and he was treated like shit and he was bullied and everybody hated him, this is what he would become. And that is the story that Rob Zombie tells.
Yeah, and taking away the mystique from, because you can argue that John Carpenter himself mentioned it, and loads of the fans of the franchise and the original, they had a huge problem with removing this mystique of Myers. As I said, I think that already gone. My probably biggest issue with going back and seeing Myers' childhood was the fact of just putting him in a rather kind of cliche, disruptive, broken family, horrible stepdad, abusive. Mum's trying her best. He's doing the serial killer stuff with killing the animals. He's getting bullied at school, so there's that. I think it would have been a little bit more interesting if we would have just seen Michael Myers in an everyday, working class, American family, or even if you want to go one step further, have him in a well-to-do family, in a wealthy family who mum and dad have got big, high-powered jobs, kids are doing exceptionally well at school, grade A students. Michael Myers is maybe at a push, maybe he's an outsider. He doesn't seem like he's part of the family. Just have him as like a mild-mannered boy. And for whatever reason, one night, Halloween, the sister says, Michael, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm not taking you out for trick-or-treating. You have to do it yourself. Just not have it as extreme as it is. I think it's just so extreme. Maybe get a bit of a middle ground, possibly, between the two.
Yeah, part of that, I think, falls at the feet of Rob Zombie. If you've watched like House of a Thousand Corpses, especially The Devil's Rejects and I think 3 from Hell, like, it's white trash. He was not going to put Michael Myers into a middle-class, white American family that's picket fences and lives in a nice suburb, because that's not his filmmaking. And it's like we said about the Munsters. It just doesn't gel in a sense. And he was going to be white trash. He was going to be like Serial Killer 101, bullied, not loved, broken family, etc., etc., etc. If you'd have had maybe Wes Craven doing this, he would have been maybe in a middle school. He would be, socially awkward. He wouldn't get on with people. It would be a different type of bullying, maybe more psychological. And then that pushes him to kill everybody in his class, but, he's got some crush on a girl called Laurie that stops him short in a sense. A different director, Jordan Peele, would have maybe played this more racially, maybe have put a different twist on it whereby, I don't know, Michael's being picked on by black people or he's picking on black people, and it's a different person, it's a different thing. I think if you're going to give it to Rob Zombie, you're going to get white trashed, and I'm kind of like, what did you expect?
What's the opening line? It's well, not the opening line, but one of the opening lines is talking about skull fucking the shit out of you. So it's like, okay, yeah, we're in a Rob Zombie film. Okay, fair enough. He sets out his stall pretty early, so you're like, all right, okay, we know where we're kind of heading with this.
And I think that's what upset people as well. They're like, straight away you're into this complete white trash, and it's like, oh, this is not. You don't get much of Michael Myers' family in the original, being fair. I mean, literally, he kills his sister, and the parents turn up, and that's it. So you don't really know anything about his family, but in this, it's like you say, it's right there, it's in your face from minute one.
Yeah, and what I will say about the original is that it's really good. I do feel that without the character of Michael Myers, and if it was just another, because there was loads of those sort of 70s and 80s films of teenagers and teenagers having sex, and there's little to no backstory, and they just turn up and they just start butchering people. And I think without the character of Michael Myers, that wouldn't have elevated Halloween to where it is now. And it was just someone else. I don't think Halloween would have become this franchise. Or it would have been like you get with other films where you maybe get a sequel or a couple of like direct-to-video type films, and it's like, oh yeah, they just keep it going. But I think the mystique and the character of Myers elevates Halloween ahead of stuff like, in the 70s, you got like Black Christmas and The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which I think in many ways are actually kind of more interesting films than Halloween in parts.
It's like when you were speaking to Tom the other day, you were doing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or the other day from when we're recording this now. And, I think what he's done is Texas Chainsaw Massacre was like so over the top and like psychologically horrific. You've got all this cannibalism. You've got the scene where they're at the table, which you guys were talking about at length, where it's just screaming and it's just like visceral and it's basically messing with your head. I think Halloween is like a more palatable version of a horror film, where like Texas Chainsaw takes it up to like 11, 12. I remember watching this the first time, still being scared shitless, and it's still like a horror film if you understand. But it's like, it's not gone that far. I can watch this and I watched it with my kids the other day because it's now considered a 15, but it's still like, right, I can watch this, it's fine, there's nothing really egregious about it. And I think that's maybe where it gets its audience. It's like, it's the first one, it has the character that elevates it, that's not exactly human because of his mask and stuff like that, but he's not just, it's not just literally blood, guts, gore, psychological terror and all that sort of thing. That's where I think that's what lifts him. He's a bit more palatable as a character.
You mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think if you're going to give Rob Zombie something in the horror genre, or to reimagine or to remake, something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something, like Last House on the Left, something like that, something really deplorable, really unsettling, nasty, horrible. I think the 2003 remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not terrible. I think it's got bits in it which I thought were okay. I don't mind it.
Yeah. I think they take... I don't think it's as artistic looking as Texas Chainsaw, the original is. There are some great scenes and there's some great setups, and it loses some of its visceralness, and it also loses a bit of its edge, because I remember when I saw it, it's like, oh, for the first time available, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, banned for years. And it's like, ooh, what is this? What is this film that's been banned? And whereas when the remake came out, you're like, it's a teenage slasher film in a sense. It's one of many that have been remade. And it just didn't have the impact, if you understand. I think that's what leads to the mystique of the original of that one.
And ultimately, how do you improve on perfection? Because for me, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is borderline perfection. And you can say the same about the original Halloween. Again, Halloween in the horror genre, it's top tier. It's an unbelievably well-made film. The introduction of the slasher genre, especially during the 70s. The 70s was, I feel, when the so-called slasher film really got into its stride. It's interesting what Rob Zombie did with this and what attracted him to do it in the first place.
Yeah. But it seems strange. I mean, I don't actually know the backstory of how Zombie ended up doing this. I don't know if he put like a treatment in. I don't know if the producers were like, because it's now Blumhouse that owns the rights to Halloween. So I don't know if it was like that sort of Incredible Hulk thing with Paramount. It's like, or the Fantastic Four, whatever. If you don't make a film, the rights revert back to the original owners. And I think maybe they were like, right, we need to do a Halloween film. And in a sense, the stars aligned, and it's like, hold on, this guy, he does horror. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah. As I said, I think at this point, when Rob Zombie made this in 2007, I think the Halloween film series was on its knees. The last 4 or 5 films were just not good. Like 6 and H2O and Resurrection. If you're a fan of Halloween, you're a fan of the series, then you may get something from them, which I think is actually quite interesting. If you look at the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Friday the 13th, Michael Myers, Halloween, as you do, I was sort of sitting around the other day just thinking about these series and what I thought of them and maybe which one I preferred. And it's hard because I think they are just so subjective, because I'm sure you'll find people that will just, go to their grave saying, oh, I love every single Freddy Krueger film.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think there is a bad Halloween film. I think they're all great in their own way. Same with Friday the 13th. Is there one that stands out for you above the rest? Are you like I'm a Michael Myers guy, or like, no, Jason Voorhees for me? Is there one that stands out for you?
I mean, I remember I did do a period where I'm like, I need to watch the Friday the 13th films, and I think I watched 4 of them in a row. And to be fair, after a while, they kind of all blurred together. I mean, I'm never... With regards to Friday the 13th, I mean, obviously the first one is really, really original, especially the twist at the end. It's absolutely brilliant. But if you're talking character-wise, in a sense, I'm kind of ambivalent to them. Scream for me sticks out because I remember going to see that in the cinema, and that first scene, and I think the first scene is Scream 2 as well, like when Drew Barrymore and Jada Pinkett Smith get killed, like I felt woozy, I felt really sick. I was like, oh my God, what have I seen? And, Drew Barrymore was a big part of the promotional material for the original Scream, so I thought there's no way they're going to kill her in the first 5 minutes. And he nails her, and I'm like, oh my God, what happened? So I think for me, I mean, I'm ambivalent towards Myers and all that. There's stuff I like in this Halloween. I love the fact that they get into the masks as well and the psychology of that. But with regards to an actual figure, for me it's Ghostface, but that's because I think I saw them in the cinema and I had that reaction, which I was like, when I went into the second one, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And then I got that feeling of sickness again. I'm like, I can't believe they've killed her in a cinema. And, that made me nervous. And they definitely left in a sense, a positive imprint. I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah. And, I think for me, in terms of Halloween, my biggest issue with the films, and with or without, saying if they get worse, Halloween 2, I think is a decent enough film. I think Halloween 3 is good. I enjoyed that. I know it's not got Michael Myers in, so a lot of people had a problem with it, but... That's
the only one I've actually never seen. I see it's on Netflix, so I should watch it.
Yes, have a look at it. I'll be interested to hear what you think of it. I think it's fun. I thought a lot of people didn't like it purely because Michael Myers wasn't in it, which is naff, I think. And, 4, 5, and 6 for me are just not great. Again, I know they have their fans, but the thing that really offends me with Halloweens and the things I have a real problem with is the masks. I think if you're going to get one thing right in the Halloween franchise, whatever Halloween film you're doing, I think you have to get the Michael Myers mask right. You can make Michael Myers a druid and you can get him joining cults and do whatever you want with it. However nonsensical it is, fine, whatever. If you don't get the mask right, I'm already zoned out. Me and Tom did 4 last year, The Return of Michael Myers. Like he's got this weird slick hair. The mask is too white. There's even a couple of scenes or a scene when he has pink hair because they mixed up the mask. That's just unforgivable.
Weird, yeah. Number
5, I think, is potentially the worst mask out of the lot. If you put a witch's hat on him, like he wouldn't look out of place on the set of Hocus Pocus. I just didn't get what was going on in 5. And it's got all this floppiness as well at the bottom, like it's not tucked in. It's like, what are we doing? 6, I think it kind of gets better. And then H2O is potentially the most unforgivable because I found out that they used, during the film, 4 different masks. And one of those masks was an actual CGI mask for one of the scenes.
That was the first one I saw in the cinema, but I vaguely remember it, but...
Yeah, that's, if you've ever heard an episode of FilmFloggers, I'm not a big CGI guy.
No, me neither.
I have an issue with it, and yeah, you do as well, Andrew. And yeah, a CGI Michael Myers mask, I just can't believe what I'm hearing. I just can't believe it.
For something as simple, I mean, it's not like his mask is like the Iron Man mask or, something from Marvel where it opens up, it comes apart, it, becomes a gun. It's like, it just has to have that kind of grimy, dirty look, a bit of blood splatter and stuff, and look like a Michael Myers mask. And
yeah,
that's it.
I just don't know how you get it so wrong, other than people come into these films and they want to put their artistic spin on it and go, oh, I like the original mask, but I feel like I could do it better. I don't get it.
It's not like they've ever said it's like, this, in this one, there's a bit of psychology behind the mask, which I can understand why people hate it as well. But it's not like they've ever said, oh, we're going to make the mask look like this because it represents X. We're going to make it, look like this. I think in the newer ones, obviously in the Halloween that's going to come out, Halloween Kills, it's partly burnt, it's all smoky and stuff like that. So I'd expect to go in there and see something that's a bit dirty, partially melted, and looking a bit scruffy. I wouldn't expect to see him in a completely pristine white mask, if you understand. So I get things like that. And there was a great scene in the Halloween 2018 one where, Michael Myers is standing in the courtyard and he's like chained to a block, and the two reporters walk in and they hold it up and you see it and it does look aged and grimy and dirty. And, it gets, even though Michael's not looking at it, it gets a reaction. And I really like that because it showed the power of the mask, and it was actually a really good mask. It looked like the original. It looked yucky. It had some power over the characters and the other prisoners. So the mask is, it is iconic it's as iconic as the Jason mask and Freddy's gloves. It's like, top tier horror stuff.
Yeah. As I said about how without Michael Myers and the mask, I think Halloween wouldn't have been elevated to where it got to when it first came out. I think it may have just been a good film in its own right, but just put next to other 70s and 80s sort of slasher horror films, other than the Michael Myers and the character and the mask. And I think with this film, you touched upon the 2018 one and the new one that's probably will be out by the time I release this, I think the masks look good in that. That's kind of back to where they should be. I think before 2018's Halloween, I think you can argue 2007 Halloween is maybe the best Halloween sequel, possibly.
Yes.
As I said, after on my initial sort of thoughts when I finished watching it, I was like, I'm not sure about that. There was, don't know. Sat down, thought about it, and then actually think, well, hang on a minute. Like, if we actually look at the franchise as a whole, what's come before this? And the whole idea of this origin stuff, I think, was inevitable anyway. And it was always going to happen eventually. So that's not really the issue. Yeah. And if you actually break it down bit by bit and compare it to what we'd had previously, I think it's actually not bad if you're putting it next to the other sequels that had come after Halloween.
I think with the timeline as well, before it came out, you had, various split-offs because, like you said, in H20, she's a head teacher at a school, she's got a son, she's killed in Resurrection, I think it is. Like, you've got cousins and all these other people getting involved. I'd like to think that probably the best thing that Rob Zombie's Halloween does is it draws a line under all of them. And it's like, you know what, we're past these straight to videos. Because everything from, I don't know about 2, but 3, 4, 5, and 6 were just released in cinemas in America. So they were straight to video in the UK, and probably, we didn't get them because of the Video Nasties Act for quite a while. But at least Rob Zombie's kind of drew a line and gone, right, we're done with all that. And I think that allowed them to then do the Halloween, the 2018 one, which is the sequel to the original. And they're like, right, because of this, we can now quite easily go, okay, forget all that, and let's just move on with these ones. And I found the 2018 one enjoyable. I'm going to say I prefer the level of gore that's in Rob Zombie's one to that one. But at the end of the day, I mean, I still thought it was a really, really good sequel to the original. And I think it worked really well from a character point of view as well for Laurie and her family and stuff like that. So I think even as much as fans hate it, Zombies one has a place because it goes, right, all this other stupidity, all this crap stops now.
Yeah, no, it's true, actually, yeah. That is a very good point about, Rob Zombie's version of this was the first one to go, do you know what, let's just forget about all that junk. 4, 5, 6, get rid of it. In terms of the character Loomis, in this version, Malcolm McDowell, isn't it, who plays him in this? What did you think of Loomis? Because I thought he was actually quite interesting, actually. I liked elements of his character and what he did and his relationship with Michael. I think the stuff in the asylum, I think, is actually some of the best scenes for me. I think they actually worked reasonably well, most of them.
Yeah. I think he's trying to get to the bottom of why this kid did it. And once again, the boy, Ferge, I think his name is, I can't remember his second name. He's really, really good as the young Michael Myers because he does, there are some violent scenes earlier on and he does really well. But then, like you say, the scenes in the asylum where he's talking and the masks are becoming more prominent, it's like he does that switching on and off between being a boy and being something different. And you see that Loomis is trying to actually get through to him, to befriend him, to make a contact and understand this in some way. And he's definitely certainly from the first one, I know people kind of give me some hate for this. Like, Donald Pleasance just walks the street like a stalker, saying that Michael Myers is here and there's nobody else around. Whereas at least in this one, he's like, right, we need to get this done. We need to do that. This kid is a killer and we need to deal with this properly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Donald Pleasance, great actor, and his version of Loomis was, was great. It was, it was part of the films and he was ever present throughout. And I think he was probably, as the films went on, he was the best part. But I think he was quite one dimensional. I think he just served in each film, even from the first one on, just to remind everyone that, evil on two legs, the devil, the blackest eyes, he's still around. So, we must be vigilant. And other people just going, oh, like Loomis, like, give that Michael Myers stuff a rest. Like, we're bored of that. He's gone now. He's down. He's been shot down a well. Like, he's gone. No, he's not. That's all he kind of did.
Yeah, he's like the guy, is it Gummer, Bob Gummer from the Tremor series?
Yes,
the gun nut. Like, he's in all of them. And it's like, okay, so he obviously needs the acting work, but he's the one callback to that really good film. And Loomis, to a degree, kind of becomes that through 2, 3, 4, 5, and I mean, actually, I don't even know. He's not in the second one, in the third one, but he's always in the Michael Myers ones as that one other connection that pulls it back. Though I do want to say he does get he gets a mention in 2018 one where Michael breaks into his house or something like that and steals some documents. There's a mention of a house getting broken into, and I think that's how Michael finds out, like, where Laurie is or what's happened, and that where the family is now, if you understand. But that's his little kind of callback or something like that.
He does kind of act like a walking reminder of what Michael Myers is all about, and kind of dumps exposition as he goes. And I think Donald Pleasance plays the character reasonably well in the sense that he plays this broken down old man who's obsessed with Michael Myers, and he's the one who needs to get rid of him once and for all, and he's never going to rest until he's gone. And I think Malcolm McDowell in this one, the Loomis character in Rob Zombie's Halloween, he's obviously very kind to Michael and he talks to him. He's trying to get to know him and trying to find what's happening and how he feels responsible for what happens to Michael and how he couldn't get through to him and how he's not talking to him anymore. And I think he's quite sympathetic and I think it plays off reasonably well. The only thing that I find jarring, which I think is fixed in the director's cut or the extended cut, there's a little bit more dialogue, I think, between him and Michael when he's pretty much saying goodbye. And he said, Michael, you haven't spoken to me in 15 years. This is it for me. I'm off. You get a bit more dialogue. And then in the theatrical cut, you don't really get that much other than, yeah, you were my best friend. See you later. And then it sort of jump cuts straight to his book tour and him just going, yeah, Michael Myers. Yeah, he's devil's eyes. And yeah, you don't trust him. Yeah. And I just couldn't get through to him and all this stuff. And it was like, oh. So he kind of built up these sympathies towards Michael, but then cut straight to the book tour and him just basically selling his book off Michael Myers. It was like, okay, well, that doesn't really fit in what you're doing, but all right, fine.
I think from a character point of view, it also gives him another reason to come back, because there's been the big jump in time. In the original Halloween, it's like literally Loomis turns up and he's like, oh, I've been dealing with this guy for 15 years and he's evil, and Michael escapes and he chases him. Where in this one, you've got to kind of... McDowell's been dealing with him as a kid, and then there's been a time jump, so you've got to have a reason for him to be leaving, and obviously the book tour is going to be like his retirement or something. I remember what you're saying because I have seen both the theatrical and the extended cut, whatever. But I think it gives his character a bit more. And then he gets pulled back in when Michael escapes. It's like he thought he was done with this. He thought this kid would be in jail forever. And it's like, okay, shit, I'm needed again. I need to step up and apply my expertise and what I know. And he's like, he's heading to Haddonfield. That's it. And everyone's like, no, how would he get there? And it's like, he's driving. How the hell do you think he's going to get there? But that's where he's going.
Yeah. I think this version of Halloween, the idea that we remove the mystique of Michael and we get all that stuff. But I think the fact that this whole, he's known as the boogeyman, everyone's, from the original, he's like the boogeyman and he becomes the boogeyman. The fact that we find out, he actually is just human. With Loomis as well, we see that he, in some ways, maybe, even though he's trying to help, in this version, he kind of becomes part of the problem. And then he's, in himself, he feels partly responsible. And I feel what the impact it has on the family and sort of the local area. I think this version probably does it better. The fact that Michael's evil ways and whatever he is, he's so horrific that it leads to his mum having to kill herself because she just can't get to grips with what he is and why he's doing what he's doing. This is after he butchers the nurse with a fork.
She deserved that. She shouldn't have turned her back on him. Come on, that's just silly.
I think I like how Michael Myers, he leaves his imprint on all these people, which I find, interesting. I think it's done reasonably well in Rob Zombie's version. I think it's handled quite nicely.
Yeah. So if we've talked about Loomis, Laurie Strode, because oddly enough, one of the notes I wrote down is that when we get to I kind of call it the third act, because the first act is obviously him as a kid. The second act is very short, is him escaping and how he escapes, which is different between the two versions. And then the kind of final act is basically an original Halloween remake. And you've got Laurie Strode, but forgive me for saying this, she comes across as like a spoiled little slutty brat, which I think is why Rob Zombie couldn't do Michael as a middle class, white picket fence family, because he does the girls as, complete trampy, gobby wee shites, and they live in middle class picket fence. Like his white trash just seems to seep through everything. I'm going to say I have nothing against the actress. I just didn't, if she died, I wouldn't have been bothered, if you understand.
I don't think Rob Zombie does character development very well. I don't think he can write. I don't think he can write and structure like a reasonably believable character arc where they go through change throughout the film, and you're like, oh, that makes a bit of sense. Yeah. I don't know if that was. I guess I don't really want to touch too much on the sequel because I know the sequel. Well, again, some people probably like it. I remember it as being just a bit of a mess, to be honest. But I don't know if that played in with, he had the sequel in the back of his head about how her character development and how she's going to change in the sequel and how she's going to eventually become, to the point where she loses her mind. And because she's got, they're the same family and they're the same blood, that it was inevitable that she was going to follow the same path as Michael Myers and become a monster and all this stuff. I don't know if that was maybe part of it, because she's not just like, a ditzy teenager. She is quite unlikable, with or without comparing her to the original Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, who's very quiet, and she's obviously she's not really into the whole like boys and all that sort of stuff. She's, even if you compare it to that,
yeah, she is a product of the 70s mentality, if you understand. I just feel that this Laurie Strode is kind of like the worst example of the kind of millennial, whatever they were. Were they Gen X or were they Y or Z by then? I'm quite old. I don't know.
Some letter.
They seem to be like the worst examples of that sort of generation. They're just not, they're just mouthy, rude to their parents, slutty, just, bitching about teachers and boys and all that kind of thing. And I wasn't fussed for her as a character in that sense.
Yeah, it strikes me as a bit odd. Rob Zombie wrote the thing, so you've got to look in his direction for answers. But, he strikes me as an intelligent bloke from what I've seen of him. Could he not have written a better teenage character?
Hold on, have you listened to his song lyrics?
Well, I haven't, no. No, I haven't. I have to say with Rob Zombie, I've seen sort of half of his films, but I haven't delved into his music. No.
His music's interesting. I mean, I'm a fan of his music. I do like it, but lyrically, you're not talking, Shakespeare or anything like that. Deep, meaningful lyrics. It is all about horror. Actually, one of his songs, Dragula, is about Herman Munster's drag racing car, and it's full of references to Munsters. But I mean, the funny thing is, I feel, I think in the original Halloween, you had Michael versus Laurie, and Laurie being the heroine. Whereas this Halloween, I think you're supposed to look at it as it's the story of Michael, his character arc. And he does go through a character arc insofar as, he's created the mask take over his persona, and he wants to be, you get that scene at the end where he wants to be part of a family and, have his sister and be a loving family. He just happens to be a psychopathic killer, and she sees him as that, and she turns on him, which is why he attacks her at the end. He can do, if he's just doing that one character, it's like, he's fine. As much as people maybe like or dislike the character arc, Michael has a story. Laurie doesn't. She seems to just be brought in for, and her friends are all just brought in for like cannon fodder at the end.
Yeah. So one of her friends is Danielle Harris. That's right, isn't it? From, well, I think she was in 4, 5, and 6. So we've got a grown-up Danielle Harris, who is one of the few to survive. I'm assuming because of who she was, Rob Zombie was like, no, we don't want to kill her off yet. And I know she comes back for the sequel. I think she maybe, spoiler, dies in the sequel. But yeah, I didn't really get that other than that she is Danielle Harris. And yeah, because Michael Myers up to this point has been pretty unceremoniously butchering people. But he keeps her alive. He sort of cuts her up a bit and beats her up, and then she comes in, Laurie comes in with Tommy and co, and sees Pumpkin Man. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? And she's still alive. And I was like, well, why has he kept her alive? Why has he done that? I don't get it.
It does lead to that great scene because she runs in and, you think she's survived, and then the door closes and he's right there. I mean, I thought that was brilliant. I thought he's used her as bait. But, I mean, this is where you could start digging plot holes, because you're like, Michael hasn't seen his sister in, so many years. How does he know it's her? There's a few bits, I suppose with any horror film, you can pick holes in it and stuff like that. But I always felt it's like he used her as bait to draw her in, and then you get this great scene of him. He's right there. I don't know why he leaves her alive. Maybe he's just, maybe he just feels he's done with her, and that's kind of it. It's like I've had my fun, so to speak. I've stabbed her a few times. She'll die eventually.
Yeah, I just looked at it and thought, oh, because it's Danielle Harris, that's why, because of who she is. And it's not worthy of trying to go, what is going through Michael's head right now? What's he doing? That's not kind of the point, is it really? Because you could sit here and say, that doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. And as you said, the fact that he knows that's his sister when he's only seen her as a baby is like, oh, okay, fine, do whatever you want. And going with that and sort of the last kind of the third act, and when he kidnaps Laurie and takes her back to that old house and tries to show that they're family, and she obviously haven't got a fucking clue what he's talking about. How it ended for me, probably at the time, I came away from thinking like, oh, I'm not sure about that, because I think it was a bit bloated, and I think when she escapes and then Loomis comes in and saves the day, and then he doesn't, and then we have the attic scene when she's in the attic for like a good 5 minutes, and I think that goes on a little bit too long. And apart from the ending, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, this is dragging. I just think the last sort of 15, 20 minutes, I think maybe goes on a tad. I think it maybe just pushed its luck a little bit for me.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, what's going to happen. That, in a sense, good is going to triumph. She's going to beat him. It's not, there's very few horror films where, the actual hero that's been built up is killed. You've got to have that one figure. And whether or not the bad guy escapes, whether or not the killer escapes, you've always got that, in a sense, that finality, whereas this is your survivor. So I think by that point, you're like, okay, now we're just kind of pushing it. He recreates the scene where she's in the cupboard from the first one. Like, he's punching through the walls and she's in the walls of the house, which is a direct, copy in a sense of that. I think there was certain, like, he wanted to do his checklist. It's like, okay, I've got, Loomis, Malcolm McDowell repeats some of the lines that Donald Pleasence does. It's like, tick, we've got to have a scene where, he does this, where he comes out from nowhere, like the mask just kind of slowly appears. And it's like, okay, tick, by this point he's got to do certain things. And he's like, we have to get that scene in, and then we have the finale. I do feel it is long. And I think people would probably say, well, you can shorten it by cutting out everything between the opening credits and the closing credits. But I think it is slightly long, but like I say, he's tried to do three things, set up Michael, have Michael escape, and then he's made like a full Halloween remake. So, I think the back end is a bit bloated.
The callbacks are pretty effective, as you said, the dialogue, and I think a lot of that's done reasonably well. The only thing that is a little bit shoehorned in for me is when we first hear the music, when going back to when he's at the school and the mother's talking to the principal, and we just get that really odd scene of it kicks, and you're like, oh, the music's kicking. Oh, okay, here we go. And then he does this weird kind of wobbly run down the hall, and it's like, all right, okay, yeah, there's Michael Myers. And then I know it's kind of set up because then he follows the bully, and then the music stops when he smacks the bully in the knee with a branch and stuff. So I think the music at that point didn't work for me, but I know he then brings it back for when he finds the mask again, and that obviously works a bit better because, of course, the mask is back, Michael Myers is back, he's got the mask back on, here we go. And I was okay with the mask in this. I didn't quite get the slits. Is that just wear and tear because it's been sitting there for a while, or was there something more to that?
I think that's just wear and tear. I think they wanted to give it the idea that it has been in the, hidden under a floorboard. I mean, I like the way they got into the idea of the mask and his personality. I really like the orange mask, the one he escaped in, like the big pumpkin. I just feel that that's like it's obviously not very iconic, but just the way the nose is done, it removes any kind of human features and it makes him look like a pumpkin, which is part of in Halloween 3, I think there's the front cover, it's a pumpkin mask and one of the people has a pumpkin mask. And I think that's a little homage to that. But I think that mask works really well it's like it completely dehumanizes him. And if you look at it as a pumpkin as just an object, it's like he is literally like empty. There's nothing in here. He's just a vessel for violence, which is when he gets into the fight with, I think it's Big Grizzly. But I like that because it proves he goes in and this is a big guy that's not scared of him just because he's wearing a mask. He thinks he's get out of my face, you fucking freak. I'm not interested in you. I'll kick your ass. And they get into a fight. And it's fairly kind of sort of 50-50 for a while. They're both big guys fighting each other. And I like that as well because, A, it humanizes him. But it's like, if you came face to face with a guy of the same size and same build as you, and he's just wearing a mask, you'd probably step back in yourself and think, well, this guy's a bit of a freak. But equally, you'd be like, well, I can't show any fear. I've got to sort of protect myself in a sense. And, Grizzly's doing what he knows how to do. So I always like the idea of that mask and what it kind of represents at that point. And then, like you say, you get the original mask and it's like, okay, this immovable kill is back. He's just going to, tear through kids now.
I think the fight with Big Grizzly is good, actually, yeah. As you said, it's the first time we've seen Myers, meet his match somewhat, even though he obviously overpowers him and kills him. Everyone else in the film, they're just puny little creatures, and he just dispatches them just like that. And it's like, yeah, okay. I think that brings it back. If it was starting to kind of verge a little bit again to like, is this guy human or is there something more to it? It brings it back to him just having a fight with a big burly bloke who's pretty much the same size, weighs the same, and they have just a good old fashioned like slamming against the cubicle. It's like, okay, all right, okay, that was good. I think that was done just at the right time because we'd seen the escape from the asylum and he breaks his chains, and you're like, okay, we get it. He's a big bloke. He's very strong and stuff. But like, steel, really? Like, okay. And you have that, and I think that sets it up well before we get to Haddingfield. And then, of course, like Michael's going to make mincemeat of teenagers.
Little teenagers, yeah. What did you think of sort of the very ending where Laurie's on top of him, she's got the gun, and it clicks a couple of times, and then you don't even see it, you just see this kind of blood spatter. What were your feelings on that? Because I say I love this film if you watch it on its own. If at that point she kills Michael Myers and there's no Rob Zombie Halloween 2, I'd be like, right, that's brilliant. She has stopped the killer. And that's why I love this. It's like, but you see at the very end how it affects her. She's screaming. She's obviously traumatized. And I'll say I like the ideas of what they were trying to do in the second one. I just don't like the execution of it. But to have that kind of, on its own, to have that finality, did you like it? Was it?
I think if we just end it there, and I heard that Rob Zombie wasn't that keen on making the sequel. It made a ton of money, of course, and I think that's what...
Oh, God, my computer's frozen.
Fucking hell. Oh, God, it was going so well.
That was my fault. My computer must have tried to do something and it froze you and
oh, that's better, actually. At least it's not on my end, because...
I don't think it could I don't think it could update or something like that, and it just... Sorry, so I missed everything from the... what did you think of the ending?
Yes, right, okay, yeah, cool. The ending is pretty effective, actually. I think it's good. In some ways, it has the feel for me of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with her face covered in blood and Sally's in the back of the van. She's sort of screaming / laughing, and you're like, oh, well, she did escape. It's over, I guess. And for her, she's just shot Myers in the face. You're like, oh, okay, there you go. She's pretty hysterical, but it's over. The bad guy's dead, but it's not over for her, because that's probably going to take a shitload of therapy, and that's going to maybe be something that she's never going to actually come to terms with what happened during that evening. Rob Zombie, I don't think he was that interested in making a sequel as such. I think it made decent money, this, and then the studio were like, no, come on, let's make a sequel. So I'm guessing the sequel for Rob Zombie was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But it was just a case of, I've got all these hodgepodge of ideas. You've given me, free reign by the looks of it. If you insist on me making this, I'm just going to do whatever I want. People will like it. Some people will hate it. Whatever. Here you go. The
funny thing is, from what I read online, is he hated the experience of making Halloween. There was so much interference, and there was the executives were over his shoulder. It's like, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? We've given you, I don't know what the budget was, like 20 million or whatever, 40 million to make this film. And, you're giving us this, you're giving us, why is this character like this? And so I honestly don't know why he came back for the second one. And the themes of the second one are really good, like how it affects her and how it affects the sheriff's daughter, because she also survived. So you've got the two of them that are kind of sharing this trauma. But, when Michael starts seeing his mum as a third person, and then he starts seeing himself as a boy, and like he actually starts visualizing his split personalities, I'm like, nah, you could have done this. That's why I love this on its own. If he'd have just left it at this and kind of drawn a line, to a certain extent, his Halloween 2 became the parody that Halloween 4, 5, 6 all became. He did a cash-in sequel, and he just didn't do a very good sequel.
If you're comparing it to the original, it's pointless. I think it's largely just a waste of time, isn't it? Because, of course, if you're a big fan of the original, the chances are you're not going to like this, because it's very different. It's a whole new take. It's Rob Zombie. It's gory. It's unpleasant. As we said, the mystique of Michael Myers is kind of ruined, and we see his childhood. I think it's just quite lazy to compare the two, because what's the point? If you compare the two, it's because you're a huge fan of the original, and you're like, well, look at this compared to the original. Like, oh, it's junk. And I don't see why we can't, as you said, just have this as its own separate thing, something new. He's tried to reboot it. He's tried to do something different. And I think the stuff with Michael Myers as a child, maybe it doesn't work in places, but I think there's some actually quite interesting things that he does with it on its own. By itself, I think it's a decent enough film.
Yeah. And also, going back to one of your other flogs for Halloween, the Psycho remake. I mean...
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
But would people have really wanted... I mean, Gus Van Sant, like you said, did a shot-for-shot remake, which seems ultimately pointless. I believe it's the only time it's ever happened in kind of cinematic history. And, he went through all the rigmarole of getting, the shots exactly, as perfect as he could. I mean, people are doing a remake. I mean, would they have liked to have just seen a shot-for-shot remake of the original? Well, obviously no, because people would then just go, well, you've got the original. And it's not like, for example, the original was in black and white and they're putting colour to it or something like that, or they're updating it slightly from the 50s to maybe moving up the 70s or something. I mean, there'd be no point in it. So it's got to be fresh. It's got to be something new. I honestly, no, I can understand why people hate it, but I will say I actually think it's one of the best Halloween films. Barring the first one, it's certainly hands down better than all the sequels and everything that's come since.
Yeah, no, I agree, actually. I think, as I said, when I first watched it, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not sure about this. But if you actually put the Halloween franchise and you put the film side by side, and you start thinking, oh, hang on a minute, we've got the first three, okay, and then after that, it's like, no, they're actually, for me, they're all largely pretty shit. I'm not on board with it at all.
Yeah. I mean, Freddy Krueger, I mean, as far as I'm aware, all of his had decent cinema releases. I think a lot of the Friday the 13th ones were kind of straight to video. They kind of knew their place, if you understand. And they built on that mythos. Whereas I think with this one, it's just like, look, let's get rid of the whole mythos and let's just go back to basics. I've not seen the Friday the 13th remake, but I know it's got Jason Voorhees in it. People are so they expect Jason to be in Friday the 13th, and that's what's so brilliant about the original one is, it's the mother. Spoilers, sorry. And that is a complete shock out of the blue. And a complete turn, especially back in the 70s, where you've got this nice white old lady, turns out to be the killer. The mother turns out to be the killer. And it's like, I just feel that, they took away all the mystique and people got annoyed with that. But I don't think the mystique was that good. And I think Michael Myers I think he has to be human. But as we've said, like, he has to have the mask. He has to have some, he's got to be a big guy. There's certain things he has to have. For me, I think this gets it all right.
Yeah, and it was a poison chalice, wasn't it, for Rob Zombie? Whatever he would have done,
yeah,
it wouldn't have been good enough, or people would have gone like, this is junk. If he would have, God forbid, attempted a shot-for-shot remake like a Gus Van Sant Psycho, it'd be, as you said, it'd been like, what the fuck are you doing? And it would have been a waste of time, because if you're going to get Rob Zombie on board, there's no point asking him to do a shot-for-shot remake and adding a bit of blood in. It'd be like, that's just wasting whatever Rob Zombie's got to offer. So, without the reboots now we've got with 2018 and the one that's coming out soon, Halloween Kills, I think maybe Rob Zombie's Halloween is maybe gone down even further now that we've got these newer ones. People are like, oh yeah, that's that's different, but no, that's rubbish. And we touched upon, I don't know if it wasn't the case, but having Rob Zombie's Halloween and the fact that it exists, I think paved the way for the new ones to come out and to be given the option of just retconning all the other ones after the original, or at least the first two, and just going like, do you know what, they don't exist because they're shit. Let's get rid of them. And
we are going to see, I mean, it's well known, we've got Halloween Kills, and then I think in another year or two we've got Halloween Ends. So in that way that kind of Saw killed off Jigsaw and what was the other one? The Final Destination. They had the Final Destination, and they had another one. I think Blumhouse is doing the right thing. They're like, right, okay, we have the original Halloween, and then we're going to have this follow-up trilogy, and it's like, this is going to complete the story, and as the title of the last one says, it's going to end the story. No, Michael's not going to mysteriously survive. I think they get that he's a human, but he has a bit more, we're not exactly in Fast and Furious territory here where bullets, slide off him and stuff like that. But we're not far off it. And I think even they understand it's like, look, he's not magic. He's not mystical. He's a guy. He's very evil. At some point his injuries have to build up and he has to die. And to be fair, I'm really interested in seeing Halloween Kills, because this is the story of like all people that have been affected by him coming back and trying to hunt him down. And I'm like, now that's an interesting story.
Yeah, and it sounds like in some ways it's got elements of this one. It seems like it's just out and out. Myers is butchering whoever stands in front of him. There's no mucking about. There's no hiding in the shadows. It's like, who's in front of me? I'm going to butcher them. And you've got people who are actually coming after him. That's obviously different to this one, but people who are coming after him, standing in front of him, going like, come on then, Myers, let's have it. Let's have it out. It'd be nice to sandwich that in between whatever the third one does. It slows it down again, and then we see the end of Michael Myers, and maybe it's just more of a battle between Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers again.
Oh, I'm losing you again.
Oh, fucking hell. Hello. Oh, dear God, right.
It's the Space Jam background.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, so I don't need to re-record that bit if you've got it.
No, I think that was okay. Right.
Put this to bed.
In between the various technical difficulties that we've had, for whatever reason, the numerous Skype calls, and let's just pray that my track has managed to behave. I think we've hopefully, done a half-decent episode there, but we've pushed our luck probably a bit too much, so we're signing off. And please, Andrew, I know you, Isla and Neve, have only recently started your top 100 movie challenge. So please tell us a bit more info about that. And by the sounds of it, you're going to be watching a lot of pretty good films. So,
because my kids are quite, born 2004, 2006, I've put together from various sources a list of like 100 classic films. So they have got to pick films off this list to kind of educate them, get them to watch some classic film, modern and kind of older classic films. So we're working our way through that list, and we've done a few changes to the episode as well. I asked the kids if, this movie cost this much compared to these other movies that cost this much. Did they get bang for their buck? Asking them where have they seen these actors and actresses before, and, maybe if they went to the cinema at the same time, would they have gone to see this or would they have gone to see other films? So, just a lick of paint just to freshen it up and try something different for a while whilst we're doing this movie challenge.
You can't really go too wrong, can you? Because you know that you're going to get, I'm sure you're going to run into some duds. Not everyone's going to agree, which is, that's what you want. You want discussion and healthy debate. But you're going to, at the very least, you're going to get just 100 quality films in their own right.
Yeah. I mean, from my point of view, I kind of, the podcast is kind of ancillary. I love films, much like you do and everyone else that does film podcasts. And I just want them to watch the films. Like if we weren't talking about them, I'd still want them to watch stuff like The Prestige, like, the original Halloween, like Psycho and stuff like that, because they're great films. The only change to this list we had to do is I had to take off all the films that were an 18. Because, youngest is 15 years old. So it's like, okay, we'll take off, all these 18s and then we'll add in some films that are maybe, that we love that aren't on the list and that we still want to talk about. We've got some anime stuff in there. I've added in a couple of martial arts films and stuff like that. So, we mix it up. But yeah, I mean, I'm just enjoying watching films with the kids, and hopefully they enjoy them and we talk about them.
Now, this is probably quite a difficult question, but are there any films that you're really looking forward to seeing that you can't wait to get to? And probably more importantly, is there any films on there that stand out that you can't wait for Isla and Neve to watch?
I'm looking forward to... So I think next week we're putting out The Lost Boys, which will have come out by the time this airs. And I love that because that is just like so... It's such an 80s film. On a scale of 1 to 80, it's like 140. It's just so 80s, it's beyond 80s. I desperately... They've not kind of been fussed for it, but it's on the list. I want to show them The Prestige. Only because that ending... You get all the way to the end and you're like, I now have to watch the entire film again. And it's such a brilliant twist. And I think it comes out of absolutely... It's hinted at, and then it comes out of nowhere, and you're like, how did he do all that? And I think it's just a jaw-droppingly brilliant moment. I just have to persuade them to sit through the preceding, 2 and a bit hours to actually watch it.
Yeah, well, funny you should mention The Prestige. A brilliant film, one that me and Fiona did attempt a few months back, which, whatever it was, put pay to it and put it in the bin because the track didn't work properly. So a bit of a shame because I thought it was an half-decent episode. And as you said, it's a brilliant film. So, yeah, hopefully we'll try and revisit that again in the future. And I guess for you as well, which is nice, it's just, looking at Isla and even be like, oh, here we go, we're going to press play, oh, what are they going to think of this? And, even if they go, no, I'm not sure about it. It's just the idea of actually getting them to watch it and just, with or without kind of recording an episode on it, just kind of hearing their thoughts, which is, I kind of wish I had that with my kid over here, Fiona. I don't really sort of get that, really. I just kind of get complaints and just like, well, okay, I better look at the trivia then, I suppose. Well, okay.
Is she hard work, is she? I mean, my kids can do hard work, but...
Fiona's, she's 30 years old, so it's probably less of an excuse, but... well, Andrew, that was good. I think that was really good. It was really great to have you on. Please tell everyone, all the socials and where best to find you and where best to interact and everything else.
Yeah, cool. Well, we're on Instagram, Twitter. We've got a TikTok account, which is building up a bit. You can find us on Spotify, Good Pods, Apple Pods. Look for Kids What We're Watching Tonight podcast. We've got a Letterboxd account. You'll find us in most places. We just do film reviews, a whole mixture of stuff, classics like we were just saying. We're off to see the new Bond film tonight. So at some point I have to we'll do a Bond episode. So we just watch a mixture of stuff. And like I said, for me, it's just about getting the kids watching like great films that I love and getting their spin on on what they think of them as. Like Lost Boys is interesting because it's so 80s, and obviously Edward and Twilight are the vampires now, and it's like, no, you've got Kiefer Sutherland. Like, he's not a vampire. It's like, no, he is. He's one of the greatest vampires. Nah, never heard of him. So yeah, it's getting their kind of modern teenage spin on the films that you and me loved from 80s, 90s, and that sort of era.
Both our podcasts were sort of born during lockdown, and yeah, it's been a pretty interesting year. It's been a good ride so far.
We still not got the hang of it though. All our technical difficulties.
No. You have these sort of moments, and you're like, oh, is this shit all worth it? Bloody hell. One day when we get into the studios and stuff, and we have a sort of a Joe Rogan type arrangement, then we can sit back and laugh about this when we're discussing the next reboot of Halloween. Whoever decides to do it next after these ones end.
It'll probably be Rob Zombie's son or something like that, or some other rock star or dirt.
Yeah. Well, okay. There you go. Thank you very much, Andrew. And what I normally do for these episodes, which I have been doing, I've just been putting in a clip with Fiona talking about all the social media and good pods and stuff. So I'll stick to it. Don't need to do that. So.
I thought you were going to ask me to do an impersonation there of Fiona. I'd be like, fucking ass, cunt, bastard. The Instagram, it's Facebook, but then it's the Instagram and the Twitter.
Yes, she likes adding the. Yeah, and it kind of changes. Yeah. But yeah, she's
Love Fiona. If Fiona ever happens to listen to this, love you, Fiona. Love you more, Ben. But and thanks for having me on. But
yeah. Mark did an impression of Fiona as well, which was I think yours was better actually. I think yours was better, to be honest. He's
got a deep voice. He's a big manly man.
Yeah, his went on for about a good 30 seconds as well. So it was like I know the Human Centipede sucks, Mark, but can we try and get back to it? But yes. Anyway, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. Pleasure as always, and
thank you very much for having me.
Hopefully, in the future, we'll get some sort of setup where, if I can risk unleashing Fiona on your kids, I don't know if that's going to work, but hopefully, if we can, we'll try and get something together where we get us all on and we chat about a film, which I think could be quite good. And I'll just make sure Fiona's on her best behaviour, if that's possible. But we'll see what happens. We won't get too ahead of ourselves.
Sounds awesome. Look forward to it. Look, take it easy.
Cheers, Andrew. Bye-bye.
Right, so for fucking October, Ben wants to do 31 days, 31 films in 31 days.
No, forget about that. Just where they can find us.
Oh, right, okay. You can find us on the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, and on TikTok, but Ben doesn't do TikTok because he doesn't like it.
Need kids. Want children. Children apply.
He also does the game floggers, but we don't do that because
we might do. We
won't.
We're gonna go back on Overcooked because Overcooked has the Halloween DLC. We're gonna use that. It's gonna be really fun.
And if you like what you hear, don't forget to like, share, and tell a friend. And don't forget to send in your 15-second reviews.
Oh, God,
thanks.
How am I going to fucking fit those in? Good pods, Podchaser,
oh, yeah, on those things.
Apple Podcast reviews.
Yep, Spotify.
Sopranos Redefined.
Oh, yeah.
That's out.
Ooh.
That's another thing I'm doing.
How's that going?
Well, it's okay, yeah.
Good.
It's not on Apple yet. Well, hopefully by the time this comes out in October, it will be. So, go and have a look at it. If you like Sopranos, have a look.
Right.
If you like Dan Mackles, Christ, poor you, have a listen.
What about if you like Ben?
Well, then you're in for a fucking treat.
If you don't like Ben, is he a waffler in this?
If you like Sopranos, just have a look.
Are you a waffler in it?
Yeah, probably.
Hello and welcome to What's Our Seat Number. If you're listening to this trailer, you're deciding whether or not you're going to listen to this podcast.
Good.
But chances are we've lost you already.
Wait, what? No, come on now. What?
Well, I mean, it takes what, like 10 seconds for people to lose interest in things? I am not being defeatist. They've gone already. It's for now.
Well, now they are because we started arguing, so we've both sort of driven them out.
Well, go on then. Tell the dead air who we are.
Okay, the dead air.
The dead air.
The cadaver.
The people who aren't listening anymore.
I'm taking control. You introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing, right? It's going to sound more professional that way. Go.
Okay. I'm Johnny Gross. I'm a filmmaker and a film fan and fanatic and obsessive.
Good. Very good. That was very well done. Very professional. You sounded like you're in control and almost like you know who you are.
All right then. And who are you?
I'm Sai. I'm a 3D artist and a game designer, a film fan. I'm your brother as well.
Really?
So we're going to be talking about some of our favourite movies and hopefully some of yours as well. There's going to be trivia behind the scenes.
Do you want to tell the listeners why we've called this podcast What's Our Seat Number?
You really came to the right person with fielding this question because I feel that I can take this story and really bring it to life. Okay, so one time we went to go and see a film in the cinema and I I asked, what's our seat number?
Fantastic.
Was it good?
Yeah.
I did it for you.
It's great. If you want to hear more, you can check out the rest of our episodes. We're hosted by Podbean, but you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music or Audible, TuneIn, Alexa, Listen Notes, and now on iHeartRadio, Player FM, and Podchaser. So pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please don't forget to review, like, and rate, and keep listening, because the more you listen, the more we'll be able to produce. Bye.
Ta-ta.